Welcome back to OTN. I'm your host, Sam Dotson. And in this segment, we're going to take a look at what happens when a private business decides to compete with the government system. In this case, Sam's Bank.
You said that we need to go and shut Sam's Bank and Trust down?
Yeah, but I mean, not only how would you feel about it, but do you even see it as you're shutting down not a bank, but a voluntary market alternative that may one day replace the government-backed banking because it's superior, because it uses sound money?
Would that be a credit union? Don't they have credit unions already?
Well, credit unions are still
FDIC.
Federally regulated?
Yeah. And they're still complying with the Patriot Act. Sam's Bank doesn't
You can't go put silver down at the credit
doesn't
union.
require a social security number. You don't have to have a government-based ID. You can use one if you want, but you can use other private IDs as well. And so the government doesn't like that because they want to know where people are moving their money around, and in order to enforce all of these drug laws. Yep. So in being asked to shut that down, it's presented to you in the form of, this is a violation of the law, whereas in the bigger picture, it's a voluntary market-based alternative that's getting knocked out of existence because it competes with the government system. You see that?
I see that, and you've got a good point. Now, why couldn't we get the laws changed? If enough people are able to feel that way, why can't we get the laws changed that would make something like that legal?
Well,
or not illegal?
One might say the banking interests are relatively influential
yeah,
to the political process.
exactly where I would go.
Who are the politicians going to listen to? Us or bankers?
People with the money. Whether it's bankers or oil people or...
And that's why I think so many people are just giving up on the idea of changing the system from within and want to just start creating these voluntary alternatives.
What about marketing the idea? I don't know. I think if you get more people on board before you try to do something like that, you might have a better effect than just doing it and then, getting in trouble for it or whatever. I don't know.
Well, certainly there are strength in numbers, and it's one of the points of what's going on here. Of course, where is your line, and why do you draw it where it is? There are certain orders you won't follow. Why do you follow the orders you do?
My line is dynamic. Nothing I say is going to be a good answer for you, but I can't sit there.
Answer for you.
Well, I can't sit there and say I have a single line etched in concrete.
What are the principles that guide you then?
Principles that guide me. Can anybody sit there and explain their principles? That's a loaded question. Unless you're the, you guys could probably explain your principles pretty easily. Because your principles are relatively simple and basic. I don't know. This is all sounding stupid, isn't it?
It's not an easy question.
Yeah, we understand.
Well,
We've thought about this for a long time, so it's helped us.
There are some things that I think are valid, getting back to the driver's licensing laws, and there's some things that I think are stupid, like I don't dispute that the current war on drugs is a failure by any measurement.
Why continue enforcing laws you disagree with?
Because there's a process in place for changing them. I haven't. Okay, this will come as close to your answer that you're asking for. Up to this point, I have not encountered any situation that is so morally repugnant to me that I just say no. I have discretion. I'm granted discretion in a lot of things. I have shown discretion in a lot of things. I've thrown plenty of dope away. I don't always do it. Sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't do it. Every situation is separate. The driver's license thing, I think, is in place for a reason, for a valid reason, not just an arbitrary reason. And that's why I choose to enforce that. And it was never any secret what my opinions on the driver's license thing was. That's why I was kind of amazed that everybody was so amazed that I arrested Russell. You know, but if Russell was so concerned with going to jail, then I guess he shouldn't have driven up to me. You know, one might say that wasn't a wise thing to do.
Now, do you see that people like Russell find the compulsory driver's licensing the state requires to be, you know, morally reprehensible, and he chooses not to abide by it?
Yep, I understand that.
Okay, I don't know where to go with that.
Well, no, I understand that, and you know what? I disagree with him, and
okay,
I would wager that the vast majority of society would disagree with him also. And then when I'm hit with the mob rule thing, if the mob agreed with Russell, then nobody would say mob rule.
In a voluntary society where roads are privately owned, road owners would be free to enter into deed-restricted contracts which require licensing by certain agencies in order to drive on that road. And that would leave other communities free to choose what's best for them. Out of that diversity, the most fair and equitable solution would naturally evolve. Coming up, we've got the drunk guys. You don't want to miss them. One of us is going to explain firsthand why the pen is truly mightier than the sword.